the book outlet box, and this is the final box. Now you guys know from my last few hauls, my book outlet orders tend to be 15, 16 books. I think there might be 22 in this box, so we've got a little bit more to go. This book I see is Trial by Fire by Josephine Angeli, and this is about a girl named Lily who's allergic to a lot of things, and one night she decides she wants to get out and try and have a normal life, and she goes to a party where one of her allergies kicks in and ruins everything. So just as she's ready for the floor to open and swallow her whole, she goes into the bathroom and something happens and she disappears from this world or this realm and reappears in another, and I believe she's in Salem. And she reappears in a different Salem that's overrun by monsters and is ruled by an evil woman named Lillian, who is actually pretty much her doppelganger twin. They basically look exactly alike, and Lily, what made her weak in the human world, somehow makes her the most powerful being next to Lillian in this world. And so I am so looking forward to this. Next I see Nameless, A Tale of Beauty and Madness, and this is about a baby who is found in the forest by the grandmother of the 7 most powerful magical houses in this world, and she's adopted by one of the men of this family. He decides to name her Camille after his late wife, and so she is mute for the beginning part of this book, I believe. And once she hits about 16 or 17, she starts talking and opening up to her friends and a boy that has become more than a brother to her. And so I guess it's kind of a retelling of Snow White. This is by Lily St. Croix. Next I see A Strange Sweet Song by Adi Rule, although I'm not quite sure on the pronunciation of that name. And this is about a girl named Sing, and she is an opera singer, and she starts falling for her music coach. And the singing school she goes to is surrounded by this dark forest where it's whispered about dark magic and monsters laying in there. So I'm guessing somehow, some way she goes into the forest. And that's pretty much all I know about this one. Next I have Immortal by Gillian Shield. This was actually a scratch and dent, and it is truly perfect, except for there are just very barely, I don't even think you can see it on the camera. No, you can't see it on the camera. There are very, very light, like imagine if you took a needle on a paperback and just kind of ran it back and forth a little bit. There are just teeny weeny tiny scratches on the back, and I got this as a scratch and dent. Other than that, it's truly perfect. This is about a girl named Eve who lives by the seaside, and she is snatched away from her home to go to this new strict snobby rich school for rich people, and she is a scholarship student, and of course all the snobby kids are kind of sticking their nose up at her, and she meets a boy named Sebastian who is also a scholarship student and her only relief from the snobby kids at this school. And she starts to learn that Sebastian's hiding something from his past, and she starts seeing this girl who looks like a ghost who looks so much like her they could be twins. Next I have After Daybreak by J.A. London, and this is about a world where vampires rule, but they're vampires, there are half vampires, and then there are daywalkers, and the only girl who has the heir to the throne to rule this world is our main character, and she's the only one left of her family, and she's the only heir to the throne, and she is actually what is considered a daywalker, which is basically a vampire or half vampire in some cases that can walk in the daylight. Next I have Goddess of Legend by PC Cast, and this is another kind of mythology retelling, although it also has to do with Camelot. And this is about a woman named Isabel, and Isabel crashes her car into a lake and is seconds from drowning when the water goddess offers her a chance to live, but she will send her back in time, and what her mission is she has to seduce I have Goddess of Light by PC Cast. This is about a woman who sends kind of a wish out to the universe, wishing for a man who would not only love her but treat her better than the men in her past, and the goddess Artemis hears her and sends her brother Apollo to this woman. And that's all I know about this one. Next I have Accidental Magic by PC Cast, And this is about a witch who swears off men, completely fed up with them, and her friend, who is a witch, casts a love spell, and it attracts a young studly male werewolf to her, and she's kind of starting to rethink her whole swearing off men. And that's all I know about this one. Next I have Every Day by David Levithan. And as I've said in the past before, I don't think contemporary is my thing, and I promised I would give another contemporary book in the future a chance. And this is pretty contemporary, but it's also kind of paranormal at the same time. This is about a character named A, I think. And A is not a boy or a girl. Every day A wakes up in a different body, and somehow throughout this journey A ends up in a boy's body, and he ends up falling for that boy's girlfriend. And so I believe this story is him trying to find his way back to that girl. It's not a high book for me to read, but it sounds pretty good. Next I have Wings by April and Pike, and this is about a girl named Lauren, I think. This is about a girl named Laurel who one day finds that this flower is growing out of her back, but I believe throughout the story that the flower turns out actually to be wings, and she's some sort of fairy. Even on the inside flap, there's not really much of a description of the story, just kind of like a little passage from the book and then another little passage on the back, so it's very vague on what this book is about. Next I have Struck by Jennifer Bosworth. This is a science fiction dystopian. As I said before, I've been wanting to kind of try some dystopian, as I've picked up a few of them, not only in Book Outlet but at Barnes & Noble. And so this is about a girl named Mia who has survived countless strikes by lightning, and she decides to move to LA to try and get away from the lightning because lightning rarely strikes in LA. And so one day an earthquake destroys LA and everyone ends up living on the beach. And somehow they divide into cults who believe that Mia is somehow the solution to making all this chaos in their world stop. And then she meets a boy named Jeremy who swears to protect her from these crazy people. Next I have Anti-Goddess by Kendra Blake. And this book I truly don't know much about, other than that somehow the gods ended up kind of mortal, and somehow that they are dying. Like the goddess, I think it's Athena. Athena's lungs start filling up with feathers somehow, and the other gods are starting to slowly die too, and they're seeking out this prophet named Cassandra who supposedly used to be a prophet for them, and she does not remember the gods even exist anymore. Next I have Sweet Venom by Tara Lynn Childs, and this is another kind of Greek mythology retelling, and this one I believe is of Medusa. And it starts off with a girl named Grace who moves to San Francisco, and while she's there she ends up meeting two girls who look exactly like her, and I believe that they are triplets who were separated at birth, but they have like the power of the Gormagons, which is Medusa, you know, the lady with the snakes for hair, and she can turn people to stone. I believe that's what this is a retelling of, and this is the first book in a 3-book series, I believe. Next I have Maids of Secret by Jennifer McGowan. This is a historical fiction. I don't read historical fiction very often, and so I thought I might as well try one again. And this is about a girl named Meg who's orphaned and steals to feed herself, and one day she steals from the wrong nobleman and she gets thrown into prison, and she gets the choice of either rot in prison for the rest of her life or train to become a maid of secret, which is basically kind of a secret service for the queen in this story. You know, they are not only her handmaidens, but they also protect her. So I guess you could say they're kind of bodyguards. I believe there is a plot against this kingdom, and Meg has to try and figure out what is going on. But she also starts falling for one of the people who are visiting the court, who also could be a person that's plotting against the kingdom. Okay, this book I truly know like the bare minimum about. Nightmare Fair by Mandy Arnett. This is about a girl named Dusty who is a nightmare, and I believe she starts to fall for one of the boys that she's haunting. Is that the right word for it? Or giving bad dreams, or maybe she's feeding off his bad dreams. I really don't know. So whatever it was must have sounded interesting because I added it to the cart. Next I have Goddess of Spring by PC Cass, and this is another Greek mythology retelling. That seems to be a theme in this haul, doesn't it? And this is about a girl named Lena who owns a bakery, and the bakery is starting to fail, and she finds a goddess cookbook and she decides to use it to try and make her bakery better. But in order to use this book, she has to make a deal with the goddess Demir, I think. Yes, the goddess Demir, and Demir will help her, but only if she trades places with Persephone, the goddess of spring. So not only must Linda bring spring to the world, but she must also spend 6 months in Hades. Next I have Towering by Alex Flynn, and I believe this is the same author who wrote the book Beastly, the retelling of Rapunzel. And this is about a girl who's been locked up in a tower her whole life. She begs her mother to leave, her mother won't let her leave. Suddenly her hair starts growing at an incredibly fast rate, and she plots to try and leave the tower. Like I said, I don't read historical fictions very often, and so don't expect me to get to this historical fiction anytime soon either. I have The Queen's Lady by Eve Edwards. This is about a girl named Jane who starts falling for a guy, and he ends up leaving like towards the beginning of the book, and then her father betroths her to someone else, and so I think it's a race between her trying to postpone the wedding and her lover trying to get back so that he can marry her. Next I have Dark Champion by Marta Acosta, and this is about a girl who's orphaned at 6 years old, and she ends up after a series of foster homes, she ends up going to a boarding school, I think it is, named Groves Academy. Birth Groves Academy, and there she meets some friends, and together they start tormenting the headmaster's son, and eventually she finds out there's something sinister going on at the school.